Hello, and today on the Driven Female Entrepreneur podcast, I am here with Steph Fonteyn, and I'm really excited because Steph runs a different kind of business, being an artist. So welcome, Steph.
Thank you, Melitta. It's a pleasure to be here.
So let's start, as I always like to on this podcast, with taking a step back and looking at where you've come from. So what made you start your own business?
Well, I had a nudge from life, a bit of a painful moment that nudged me to take a leap of faith. So I don't know whether I would have got here without that nudge. To cut a long story short, after the birth of my son, I experienced a postnatal depression. So while I was figuring myself out during that period, that sort of instigated a desire for change in life, if you like. And then when I thought about what that change could look like, I wanted to connect that to my passion, which was painting. And then I had to think, how can I make an actual stable living, even if not in the beginning, because every business is a bit rocky in the beginning. So I thought about how could I become an artist, but make a living and not be a starving artist. And I started connecting all the dots between my past experiences, which were an officer cadet in the British Army while I was at university. So we had a lot of leadership training there, to working in the HR world, in the corporate side of the business, to already being an artist, but in my spare time as a painter, and connecting all of those dots. And that led me to start the journey of where I am now.
I love that you've not just followed your passion, but brought all of your experiences to that as well, to build a really fantastic business. And maybe you could explain a little bit about what that looks like in reality. How do you combine HR and army leadership experience with art?
That's a good question. And I often lead with that. When people ask me what I do, I say I connect art and business, and that generates a curiosity gap that gets them asking more questions. So the military part, I'd say this is about stepping out of your comfort zone and pushing your boundaries to gain insights and learn. The corporate side was the whole part about having a shared corporate vision, mission or strategy that everyone knows about, where they're going and how they're going to get there. And the art part was the platform for all of that to take place. So the main core of my business is team building, and it's meaningful team building in the sense it's not going kayaking or bowling. It's meaningful in the sense that they will transform, whether it's the values, the strategy, the mission, the vision, their purpose. It could be brand purpose, the vision for a product launch, anything that you want to visualize and unite people around. Their team challenge is to convert that into a masterpiece in a limited amount of time, typically 2.5 hours. And I can have groups of up to 150 people doing this all at once.
Wow.
I have a supporting team, of course. It's not just me in the room. And they have to do all of that in the style of a famous artist again. One, so that it increases this sense of team challenge. And when something seems seemingly impossible, they are going to team up together and work together, because how else are you going to do it otherwise? So it really provokes this team working, this collaboration. And the fact that they don't think they can do something, as most people don't perceive that they have any artistic abilities, means that the power of the wow at the end is high, and you get that sense of team pride, not only about where they're going, but what they've just achieved together, which is almost like one of the first steps in that direction for the future. And I probably didn't realize how powerful that all was when I started out, but as I see clients coming back, their feedback, their testimonials, the impact it's having on teams, I've dug deeper myself over the years. I'm about to enter my 10th year now, and yeah, I've explored more why that works, I suppose.
Yeah, and that power of creating something, it's not like anything else, especially when you didn't think you could do it in the first place, and then you actually come up with something that's really good. And I did actually, I've got a business degree, that I got from oh, what's happened there? Sorry, something just popped up on my screen. Okay, yeah, I did. So I did my business degree in an art school. So although we learned all of the usual marketing, finance, legal, all of that kind of thing, we did a lot. We did a lot of art history and architecture and design alongside that. But for a lot of our leadership, especially lessons, we used art. And I remember one lesson about I can't remember what the subject was, but we had to use our energy to create this huge painting with anything we found outside, so leaves, and using our fingers and paints and stuff, just to create, just to express the energy we felt towards a certain task. It was something to do with leadership, and then like, great, now rip it all up. We're like, what? And then create something new with it. And I think that was a really powerful perspective, that what you create can always be different or used in a different way. And so I love that perspective it's given me. And I think when you have this artistic or sort of freedom to create and challenge and innovate in new and different ways that you've never done before, you start to see things in a very, very different way. And I love that that's what you're bringing to people. And I can imagine just how they go away, and that what I've learned is that it's the experience and the emotions and the energy related to a task that stays with you more than anything else. So I can imagine that they just go away feeling like completely different people as well. So yeah, that's wonderful.
And that really tunes in nicely to a really nice quote by Maya Angelou, who says, it's not what people say, do that you remember, it's how they make you feel.
Yes.
And so when you have such an experience, they're going to feel it.
Yeah.
And on top of it, they're going to see the fruit of their creation, co-creation, hanging in the corridors afterwards as well. So you have the visual, which is powerful, and the feeling that they don't forget.
Yeah. And powerful stuff. So when you were starting out in business and you were thinking about what your business could be, how did the reality of running your business over the last 10 years match up to what you thought before you got stuck in?
Okay. I think when I started out, I was a bit like, if I like visual metaphors or analogies, I don't know if you have a dog, but when you walk a dog down a country lane or a country path, they are zigzagging because they're following lots of smells, interesting smells. So the general direction of where they're going is the right one, but it's not yet really refined. So I think when I first launched, because you need to pay your bills, I was quite diversified in what I was doing. So I was teaching, I was selling my art, I was starting out the team building business. But I'd say 80% of my time I was in the art studio painting and teaching. Then I'd throw in, because I have lots of ideas all the time, I'd test out all sorts of things. So I've done hen parties where we had nude models and a glass of champagne and things like that. I did kids' birthday parties where they were designing their own T-shirts. Like, I did anything linked to art in the beginning. It took a bit more maturity along the journey to realize, hang on, Steph, you need to focus on this corporate side and merging those two worlds. If you're going to grow your business, you put all this effort into and energy into something, this is where you need to focus. It doesn't mean you're dropping the other balls, but you're changing the focus and the percentage of effort into an area that makes sense. And since I started doing that whole business has grown. It's diversified within that channel as well. So if we call that part of my business the corporate side of the business, it's diversified. It started out as team building. I do a lot of event branding, live art entertainment for massive events. Just recently I had an inquiry for an event where there were 13,000 people in USA for the end of the year. With Corona, I don't know if that's all going to happen, but suddenly there were possibilities on the corporate side of the business that I hadn't even imagined when I had started out. So just the fact that you start walking down that country lane like a dog who's curious, sniffing all the smells. It opened up many doors once I decided to focus my effort in a certain direction. So that was the surprise, but a pleasant surprise, if you like.
Yeah, I love that, because I think a lot of people in the early years of business do struggle to find that one thing that they really can get behind and love, but it takes that time of experimentation to find that. Sometimes you don't know exactly what you're going to do straight out of the gate. And what I've seen in my experience with my clients as well is when they start out in those early years, they have no real idea of what's possible for them. It's only when you start and you learn and you push your comfort zone, as you were saying earlier, that you start to learn how much you can actually do, and that you can do a lot more than you ever thought. And all these things that you thought were going to be difficult are difficult often, but you can do them. They're not impossible. And once you start to learn those skills and get that confidence in yourself, then you start to dream bigger. And then you put things out there and you discover what you love and what people connect with and what creates meaning and you want to push forward with. And it's not always so easy to know this from the beginning. So I think it's great that you shared that experience, and others out there can take that as permission that you can take your time to experiment and explore and build a business that you really you kind of feeling it out as you go, and becoming bigger and better than you ever thought. Like you're saying, these possibilities that come to you, all of a sudden you're like, wow, yeah, that I can do that. That would be cool. And keep continuing and growing.
Yeah.
So what do you think you love most about running your own business?
The most exhilarating part is this journey, if you like. So where I started out on intuition, on passion and purpose, that became more of a brand, within which I can frame everything I do, yet push the boundaries of what that looks like. So perhaps my first team building ever was with 20 people, and then a period later, I had become good enough at that to do it in a very short amount of time, because no one wants to spend a whole day on a team building. So that was a challenge too in the beginning. I think the first time I did it, it was 5.5 hours, I think, with 50 people. And now the fastest we've ever done it was an hour, but that was in a business school environment where we briefed them for 10 minutes, the whole process, and then they had 60 minutes to do the full challenge. That was actually at IMD, where they wanted to observe team dynamics. Okay. But pushing the boundaries in terms of, okay, we can do it with 10 people. What does it look like if we do it with 90? What does it look like if we do it 120? What if we do the 120, but not in 3 hours, in 2 hours and 15 minutes? What can we streamline? So constantly pushing boundaries there, whether it's the art style, whether it's the location. We've been asked to do things outdoors. We've been in these massive, I don't know what you call them. What we've been once in the US, and we were in like this giant, it looks a bit like an igloo, but it's a marquee, big pod. Right. We were inside one of those, dealing with altitude sickness, because it was in Aspen, Colorado. So you don't want to run to the toilet when you need the toilet, because you get dizzy from the altitude sickness. So yeah, the thing I like the most is pushing my boundaries. Now I'm pushing boundaries in the digital sense of the word, where sparked not by postnatal depression this time, but sparked by a global pandemic, obviously with coronavirus. How can I do what I do using technology, at least for the short term, but maybe also as an offering in the long run as well, and to seize those as opportunities, although it seems scary sometimes, but taking those as opportunities to be agile and adapt and look at things from an angle that we wouldn't have seen it otherwise. My husband was transferred a few years back to Miami, and so I was really sad initially to shut down my business in Switzerland. I opened it whilst again in the US, but being far, taking that step back from the masterpiece, if you like, enabled me to see that, I could do things differently. How do I keep my business alive while we're away temporarily? And I started to research how to license my business, and that got me into licensing what I do to other facilitators or artists in different regions to myself, so that they know how to sell it, how to deliver it, and I wouldn't have thought of that maybe if we hadn't have moved to Miami. So all these unexpected changes in life are opportunities to do things in new ways that you wouldn't have thought of before, and perhaps there's something really interesting behind that in the long run.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's when we become limited in some way, that's almost when we're at our most creative. And I can remember a while back at art school, we had to create something with colors, and then okay, well, now you have to create the same thing in just black and white. And I was more proud of what I did in black and white, and it was restricted because it forced me to be more creative, to be more streamlined, and to really think more deeply about what it was I wanted to create and how I could do that. So I think you're very right. These times of challenge are often just the opportunity we need. And it's, when you're doing your SWOT analysis with your strengths, your weaknesses, your opportunities, and your threats, these threats are the things that you want to focus on. Is okay, great, well, how can I turn those into opportunities? How can these become an asset for me? How can I do things differently? And it's so I love how you've really taken that concept and you've seen it work already, so that now we're in a crisis again, that's not something that you're panicking about, but more great, let's roll up my sleeves and see what we're going to create this time. So I think that's a wonderful outlook. Thank you for sharing.
You're welcome. And panicking about it isn't going to change the scenario, right?
No,
in fact, it's going to block any. If we panic, we're going to go into reptile mode, which is going to block any of those great ideas that we do want to invite at those times. So I know it's easier said than done, but it's important to be aware of that at least.
Yeah, exactly. And it's often these things always happen for us rather than to us, and it's just keeping that perspective can really help us find that positive in the situation and the lesson that we're here to learn, which then takes us to our next success, which is really exciting. It doesn't always feel that way, but as I always say in business, at any moment when you're in your business and it always feels scrappy. Nothing really feels like, oh, this is coming together nicely. At the end it feels like that, oh, that came together nicely, but in the moment it always feels a little bit like, oh my gosh, I have no idea what's going on here. But you just keep going, keep putting one foot in front of the other, zigzagging across the country path, sniffing out the smells, and you get there. Just stay focused on your dream and your goal, and not so worried about the exact how to get there. You can be a bit more flexible.
Totally. And to take breaks in that journey and look back and celebrate where you've come from. Because I think when we're constantly in motion, you miss opportunities, which is really important to pat yourself on the back and think, wow, I've come from here. That led me to this, which opened up doors to do this. And I think it's really important to, even if it's just in your own mind, is to celebrate those small successes along the way, because that's what feeds into the big picture.
Yeah, exactly. And it's not about hitting the big goals, it's about the progress we make along the way. And if you don't stop to recognize where you've come and see all the different things you've done and how you've grown and overcome different challenges and what you've learned along the way, then you always feel, sometimes we can feel like a huge failure if we just have this big goal in mind all the time that we're never quite achieving. Then it's like, gosh, I'm never getting there, rather than seeing all the amazing small steps you've taken along the way. And it's so important to take stock and look back and celebrate those successes and recognize the progress you've made and use that as your motivation to get to the next success.
Yes. And it depends how each person is defining their success as well, how you look at things too.
Yeah.
Is it having a series of testimonials from clients? Is it that your clients are referring other clients? Is it that people who you meet that you've never physically met before already know about you and what you do? So that means the grapevine is promoting you even without you doing it yourself. Is it hitting a certain financial objective each year? Is it being able to charge more for your services than when you started out? I mean, there are many ways to define. Is it the fact that it fits in with your family life or not?
Yeah.
Does it allow you the space to take care of yourself alongside? Because that can be a challenge as well.
Yes.
And if we're all running ourselves, burning the candle at both ends, as my mum would always say when I was a child, it's not sustainable either.
No.
And we need to run a business or be an employee in a way where it's like the safety instructions on the airplane. You've got to put your own mask on first, otherwise you're no help to anybody. If we start putting everybody else's mask on first, we're not going to make it. So
no, absolutely.
Yeah. Self-care is important as well.
It's so important. In fact, in my first business, I set up myself as a communications consultant, and I came very close to burnout for that very reason. I built my business to have flexibility around my children, because prior to that I was in senior leadership and working all the hours around the sun, and I was like, I can't do that. I want to be a mom as well. So I went out on my own, and I didn't really think about what success looked like for me. And I was bringing in the money. That was great. I was fully employed. That was great. So all the kind of exterior signs of success were there. I was being there with my kids. That was great. My husband was able to do travel the world with his work because I was at home. So that supported him. So that was, all these success things were there, but I was miserable because I didn't have any time for me. There was no, I'd kind of stepped away from my purpose. I didn't have that meaning. I wasn't looking after myself. I wasn't eating healthily. Everything that was perfect apart from there was nothing in it for me at all. So it's one of the big things I'm always happy to share those experiences. I'm really pleased that you brought that up. Is like, you've got to know what success means to you and create that. Don't just let it happen, because it won't. You have to really consciously manage that in your life and your business. If you want more flexibility, if you want time for yourself, book it in. You are the leader of your own business, so you've got to take that responsibility.
Create your perfect job.
You shared so much gold already, but would there be any, maybe your top 3 tips for women who are perhaps in the earlier stages of their business or ready to scale up? What would you say would be the best things they could really focus on and work on right now?
I think the first key is be you. So be authentically aligned with who you are, because it will be tough. And if you are not playing with your strengths or your passion, and it doesn't have to be a passion, but certainly your strength, the tough times, you're not gonna fight through it, because you need to want it to fight through the tough times. So be you, be aligned with who you are and your strengths. The second one would be about your network, and that's both personally and professionally. So if you don't have the right supportive personal network, especially if you have a family, it's going to be extra challenging. So you need to have the right people in place to help you there. And professionally, networking is key. 100% of my work is coming through my network and the network of my network. So if you don't know how to do that, go and meet people who you see doing that really well and learn fast. Otherwise, once you've saturated your initial inner circle of people who might buy into your business, friends of friends, you need to go beyond that to be successful in terms of generating sales in the long run. So know how to network and have your support network. And my third tip would be about the comfort zone. So keep on pushing. I like to call it getting comfortable with the uncomfortable. So constantly step out where it's a bit uncomfortable, and to see how much further you can go than you've previously done before. It will keep you ahead of your competition. It will keep you learning, and you might discover things, whether it's thanks to Corona or moving to Miami or whatever, but do things and see things in a different way that will open up new doors as well. So
I love those points, and I totally echo all of them. And in fact, my 3 businesses I've had have been able to start quickly and at zero cost because I had a network. And being a shy introvert, it wasn't always easy to build that, but it's something, I mean, I can't remember who said it, but there's someone says that your network is your net worth.
exactly.
It's so valuable. It's definitely worth building, and now we have more tools than ever. You know, we don't have to go out and network in person, which is always the best way, of course, but then you've got LinkedIn and social media tools and other ways we can network now as well, which is wonderful. And that comfort zone, yeah, it's scary, but it gets addictive. Once you start and you're like, oh, I didn't think I could do that, and I did. What else can I do? And you don't have to do like jump off a cliff or anything like that. You can just take small steps to build the courage to keep going out of your comfort zone. Because I think I hear so many people saying, well, I'll wait till I'm good enough at this or till I have more confidence. But it's the wrong way of thinking, because you don't get confidence until you've pushed out your comfort zone. It's what you get as a result. And it's not, so if you're sitting around waiting for that, you're never going to move anywhere.
Exactly. And that's where it's interesting. If there is an opportunity to teach others something, our automatic response is, oh, I'm not good enough or an expert enough to be the one to help others learn more. But it's often when you're teaching others something, you're going to learn more yourself, because it triggers you to dive deep into a subject. An example of that, I was asked, I'm part of the Toastmasters Club in Nyon, and we're now doing our fortnightly sessions. We're about to start doing those online now because of Corona, so that's going to be fun to see how that goes. But recently I was asked to give an educational talk on networking, and my exact initial reaction to the president was, but I'm not a guru. There are people out there whose business is all around networking and how to network and how to become better at it. She said, no, but you're doing it really well. The other day when you explained to me how you get business, you listed a massive long list of all the different channels. And so she encouraged me. So I guess I can thank her for that. And then I did a load of research, which I love doing, to be honest, whether it was on Harvard Business Review or Fast Company. I'm a subscriber on Blinkist as well, which gives you a short summary of different books. It's a great app. I love it. And then I put together, intertwine that with my own perspective and play on words to make it my own, and then made that into an educational speech. And it's true, it connected all these dots for me by researching it, something that I was perhaps intuitively feeling, but I didn't feel confident enough without that nudge to go out there and do it. And it was, I got so much myself from it, and I believe the audience did too from their response afterwards. But that was another example of pushing those boundaries and not letting a lack of confidence stand between us and an opportunity, whether that's your boss saying, how about you do this job, or an opportunity as an entrepreneur in your business. I think it helps to put yourself out there.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's like Richard Branson says, like, say yes and then figure it out afterwards.
Exactly.
Because there's always someone that can support you in one way or another. If you have an opportunity, you just have to run with it and see, and you'll, as you say, you'll learn that you actually probably know a lot more than you thought in the first place. And I think that's a wonderful lesson to end on. Thank you so much, Steph. It's been fantastic.
Thank you.
So how can people find you if they want to know more about your business and your art?
There's many ways. Stephanie Fonteyn on LinkedIn is a good way to connect. I have 2 websites, stephfonteyn.com or collaborativeart.ch for the team building and event branding business. Otherwise, I can pass on my email, which is info@stephfonteyn.com.
Fantastic. And I'll put all those contacts down in the show notes below as well, so people can just click and get through to you. Thank you again so much for your time, Steph. I've really enjoyed this, and I know people have, like, I'm sure anyone out there with a pen and paper, the paper's on fire right now. They've been taking so many notes, I'm sure.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure, Melitta.
Thanks.